Thanksgiving was always a chaotic, beautiful mess in the Whitmore family. My mother's rosemary turkey, the endless pie selection, the board game arguments that started with Monopoly and ended in someone storming off or laughing so hard they nearly choked on their wine. It was noisy, imperfect, and completely ours. So when my phone stayed silent this year, no group chat about stuffing preferences, no email assigning dessert duties, I thought something must have come up. Maybe Mom was overwhelmed. Maybe Dad had thrown out his back again. Maybe Jenna, my sister, was too busy with her kids. I waited. Checked my phone more times than I'd admit. But the silence lingered. Finally, I called. "Hey, Mom," I said lightly, trying to sound casual. "Just wondering what the plan is for Thanksgiving this year?" There was a pause, then her voice, sweet but strangely stiff. "Oh, honey. We're not doing anything this year. Everyone's just too busy, travel, work, you know how it is." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yeah. Makes sense, I guess." But it didn't. Just last month, during my niece's birthday party, Jenna had been going on and on about how excited she was for Mom's stuffing and Dad's ridiculous canned cranberry sauce. Plans had already been forming. So what changed? Or more accurately, what hadn't? I, Claire Whitmore, the family soft spot, the divorcee, the quiet one who left her job on sabbatical to take care of Mom after surgery last spring. I was the only one who hadn't changed. And maybe that was the problem. Jenna had once joked, "Claire's like the family's emotional sponge. She just soaks up all the stuff no one else wants to deal with." I used to think it was affectionate. Now I wasn't so sure. As the days passed, no messages came. No change of plans. No flannel-clad family photo with wine glasses raised and hashtags like #grateful for mine. I told myself I didn't care. I had freelance deadlines. Maybe I'd just order Chinese and binge a few old rom-coms. But around noon on Thanksgiving Day, the silence in my apartment felt deafening. The streets outside were still. Every window glowed with warm light. I imagined forks clinking, kids laughing, and the hum of football games behind frosted glass. I put on my coat and decided to take a walk, hoping a cup of coffee might untangle the tight knot forming behind my ribs. That's when I saw them. Through the window of La Fontana, the cozy Italian place Mom and Dad adored, they were all there. Mom. Dad. Jenna. Her husband. Their 2 kids. Even Uncle Ross, who'd supposedly skipped this year because of back pain. They were seated around a long candlelit table, laughing over plates of roasted chicken and wine. Everyone was smiling. It wasn't a scheduling mix-up. It was a choice. I stood there for a long minute, breath fogging up the glass, trying to convince myself I was wrong. But I wasn't. I pushed the door open, driven by instinct, not reason. The warmth inside hit me like a wave, laughter, garlic, butter, wine. Conversations died. Chairs shifted. Jenna turned and saw me. Her smile faltered. "What are you doing here?" she asked, blinking like I was a ghost. "I was just walking by," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. Mom recovered first, standing halfway from her chair. "Claire. We didn't think you'd want to come. You've just had so much going on lately." "You told me Thanksgiving was cancelled," I said, my voice thinner than I wanted it to be. Dad suddenly became fascinated with his water glass. Jenna leaned back in her seat, a smug smile playing at her lips. "Well, maybe we just thought it'd be more comfortable this way." "What does that mean?" I asked, though I already knew. "You don't really fit with this family anymore," she said with a chuckle. And then, laughter. As if it were a joke. As if I was the punchline. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just nodded, turned, and walked out. The cold slapped my face, but it was kinder than anything I'd felt inside that room. The walk home was a blur. I passed twinkling lights in store windows, the scent of roasted turkey floating from every apartment, strangers gathered around tables they didn't have to earn a seat at. When I got home, my inbox pinged. Work email. I deleted it without reading. I sat on the couch for hours, staring at nothing. I thought about every time I'd shown up for them. The holidays I'd planned when Mom was too tired. The birthdays I'd hosted for Jenna's kids. The nights I stayed up talking her through her divorce while mine was unraveling in silence. And now? I'd been cut out like I'd never existed. But I didn't cry. Not that night. Because something colder was stirring underneath the grief. Something sharper. Resolve. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. Not because I had anywhere to be, but because sleep wouldn't come. My mind kept replaying the restaurant scene on a loop. Jenna's voice, mocking. My mother's silence. My father's refusal to meet my eyes. How long had they planned this? Had they felt guilty at all? The house was quiet. No texts. No apology. Not even a fake, "Hope you're okay." I opened my laptop and started typing, every moment I'd been excluded, every time I'd been made small. I didn't know what it was, an essay, a journal, a purge. But it felt like truth. Snow was beginning to fall outside, gentle flakes dusting the sidewalks and rooftops. The city felt softer. Inside me, everything was hardening. Then I remembered something. 3 weeks ago, Mom had asked me for my sweet potato casserole recipe. Just in case, she'd said, if we do something small. I'd sent it without thinking. But now it felt like a betrayal. Not theirs. Mine. They had planned it. They just didn't want me there. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A push notification from Jenna's Instagram. A photo of the night before, everyone gathered around the table, wine glasses raised. The caption read, "Grateful for the ones who matter most." My hand trembled. I took a screenshot. Evidence. Of what? I wasn't sure yet. But something in me snapped. They could play family on social media. Smile for their curated posts. Pretend they were whole. But I knew better. I knew who paid Mom's electric bill last December when Jenna forgot her wallet and they came up short. I knew who drove 3 hours to pick up Dad from a snowstorm when no one else answered the phone. I knew who held Mom's hand after surgery, when Jenna said she couldn't come because the kids had a cold. They'd forgotten. But I hadn't. That night, I pulled out a box from under my bed, photo albums, cards, old letters from my grandmother. She had passed 5 years ago, the only one in our family who truly saw me. Who noticed when I was hurting. Who called just to say she loved me. One letter caught my eye. Dated November 2012. Claire. Never let anyone confuse love with loyalty. Some people will love you when it benefits them, and forget you when it doesn't. Pay attention. Walk away when you need to. Love, Grandma. I hadn't understood it back then. But I did now. The morning after Thanksgiving, I woke early, not because I had somewhere to be, but because I couldn't stop replaying that moment. The restaurant. The laughter. The way Jenna looked me dead in the eye and said, "You don't belong." Sleep was useless. So I got up, made coffee, and stood by the window watching the snow drift lazily down. It softened the edges of the city, made everything look quieter, cleaner. But inside me, everything was sharp. No messages. No apologies. Not even a passive-aggressive, "Hope you're okay." And in that silence, I found the answer I didn't want to admit. I wasn't forgotten. I was excluded. Deliberately. I opened my laptop and started writing again, not fiction, not poetry. Just truth. Memory after memory poured out. Every time I'd been left out, dismissed, minimized. Every favor unacknowledged. Every time I'd told myself they didn't mean it. Then I remembered something else. 3 weeks ago, my mother had asked me for my sweet potato casserole recipe. Just in case, she'd said, if we do a small thing later. I hadn't thought anything of it. Just emailed the recipe and went back to work. But now, it hit like a slap. They had already been planning Thanksgiving. They just didn't want me there. That same afternoon, another push notification buzzed on my phone. Jenna had posted again. Another photo, Mom, Dad, The kids. All smiles, arms around each other. This time, the caption read, "Family first. Grateful beyond words." I took a screenshot. It felt like evidence. Evidence of what? I wasn't entirely sure. But something inside me had shifted again. The sadness was still there, but something colder wrapped around it now. Resolve. I thought about everything I'd done for them over the years. How many times I'd rearranged my life to make theirs easier. Like last year, when Mom's fridge broke down 2 days before Christmas and I used my savings to buy her a new one. Or the time Jenna's car wouldn't start and she couldn't get approved for repairs, so I quietly covered the bill. I'd even paid for my nephew's school field trip when Jenna said, "Things are tight this month." And suddenly, I was tired. Not of giving, but of giving to people who only saw me as useful when I was convenient. That night, I opened an Excel spreadsheet and started typing. Family loans, 2017 to present. Line by line, I listed everything: the $400 for the fridge, $620 for the car repair, $75 here, $120 there. Payments made, promises never returned. The total was over $18,000. I stared at the number for a long time. It wasn't just the money, it was what it represented. I wasn't a daughter. I was an ATM with a pulse. I printed the spreadsheet and folded it into an envelope. I didn't know yet what I'd do with it. But just holding it made me feel like I'd finally named something that had been quietly devouring me for years. The next day, I got a text. From Jenna. "Hey, hope you're okay. Mom says you've been distant. Want to grab coffee?" No apology. No mention of the restaurant. Just a casual brush over, like we'd missed a lunch date, not a lifetime of respect. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new note on my phone and typed a title I never thought I'd need. Boundaries I am setting with my family. 10 bullet points. Some were practical. No more loans. No more last-minute favors. No more being the default babysitter. Some were emotional. If they don't respect me in public, they don't get access to me in private. I don't owe them silence to keep the peace. I will no longer shrink to fit into spaces where I was never meant to belong. I read it out loud to myself. Then saved it. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. But I knew it wasn't over. They wouldn't let go that easily. 3 days after Thanksgiving, my mom finally called. Not a text. A call. I stared at the screen, debating whether to pick up. My heart thudded, not out of love or longing, but because I knew exactly how this would go. She'd pretend everything was fine. She'd feign concern. And somehow, she'd make it my fault. Still, I picked up. "Hi, Mom." "Oh sweetheart," she breathed, as if she'd been holding back tears. "I've been so worried. Jenna said you've been distant." There it was. The classic opening line of every gaslighting performance: "You're the problem." "I saw the photos," I said calmly. Silence. "I saw you. All of you. At the restaurant." Another pause. "You told me Thanksgiving was off. But it wasn't. I walked in. You looked me in the eye. No one said a word." Her voice tightened. "That was a misunderstanding." "No," I said, voice steady. "It was a decision." She exhaled sharply. "Claire, I don't know what's gotten into you. You've been so emotional lately. Always assuming the worst." My fingers dug into the couch cushion. The old me, the one desperate for approval, would have apologized. Tried to smooth it over. Asked her what she needed to feel better. But that version of me? She was gone. "I'm not being emotional, Mom. I'm being honest." There was a pause. Then her tone shifted, sweet, careful, manipulative. "We didn't want to hurt you. We just thought maybe you'd feel uncomfortable. After everything. The divorce, the job stuff. You've had a rough year." There it was again. That word. Sensitive. Her favorite tool. The thing she used to make me feel like I was the one who needed fixing. "You mean the divorce I went through alone?" I asked quietly. The one none of you showed up for? The one you dismissed because at least he didn't hit you? Silence. You're right, I continued. I have been sensitive. Because I've been surviving. Because I've been putting everyone else first for so long I forgot what it felt like to put myself first. She went quiet. Then, in her softest, most rehearsed tone, we're family, Claire. We make mistakes. But we stick together. Do we? I asked. Yes, she said, more urgently now. We're all we have. No, I said, finally. You had me. And you made a choice to pretend I didn't exist. And then I hung up. For the first time in my life, I hung up on my mother. And I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The next day, Jenna called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail anyway. Mom said you're spiraling. Look, I know you're hurt, but honestly, you've always been dramatic. We didn't mean to exclude you. But it's exhausting walking on eggshells around you. You always make everything about you. Maybe this break is good for everyone. I sat on my bed and listened to it twice. Not because I believed it. But because I needed to hear, clearly, how they saw me. A burden. An inconvenience. A problem. I wasn't going to be their problem anymore. I opened the envelope with the spreadsheet and added a note. This is what I've contributed to this family over the past 6 years. Going forward, I will no longer provide financial support. I am not available for one-sided relationships. If you wish to be in my life, it must be based on mutual respect. This is not an invitation for debate. It is a boundary. No flowers. No emojis. No love you anyway. Just the truth. It felt cold. But necessary. I didn't expect a thank you. And I didn't get one. Instead, 2 days later, I received a group text from my father. This family is falling apart. Hope you're happy, Claire. I didn't respond. Not because I wasn't hurt. But because I was happy. Not happy that the family was falling apart. Happy that I was no longer letting them bury me under the rubble. It was a gray Friday afternoon when my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in over a year. Aunt Margaret. My mother's older sister. The family anomaly, sharp-tongued, emotionally direct, and always a little too honest for anyone's comfort. She'd moved 3 states away after a falling out with my parents years ago, and no one ever explained why. Our contact since had dwindled down to the occasional birthday card and one-sentence email. So when I saw her name, I hesitated before answering. Claire, she said, her voice clear but weathered, like an old radio transmission. I heard about what happened on Thanksgiving. My stomach tightened. Did Mom call you? No. Jenna did. Thought I'd talk some sense into you, I suppose. There was a pause, then a sharp scoff. Didn't realize that girl had the nerve. I didn't say anything. I didn't know where this was going. I told her she should be ashamed, Margaret continued. And then I told her something else. Something you deserve to know. My breath caught. What is it? There was a long pause, like she was weighing whether to say it. Then. It's about your inheritance. I sat up straight. What inheritance? Your grandmother left something for you, she said. In her will. But your parents never told you. I blinked. Wait, what? I found out 2 years ago when the estate lawyer contacted me to confirm her intentions. He said your parents told him not to reach out to you directly, that they'd handle it. Her voice was tight, like she was reliving her own anger. She left me something? Why wouldn't they tell me? I asked your mother that exact question, Margaret said. She told me you didn't need it. That you had your fancy apartment, your career, your independence. Jenna had kids, so it made more sense to give her a little more. I stared at the wall. The room felt suddenly too small. Too quiet. How much was it? I whispered. 35,000, she said flatly. It was in a savings account in your name. Your grandmother set it up when you turned 21. She wrote a letter with it, said it was for a first home, or to start a business, or whatever mattered most to you. My hands were shaking. And it's gone? Margaret sighed. I only found out the full details after I visited the lawyer myself. Your mother had partial custody of the account because she helped manage it when your grandmother got sick. Technically, she had access. But it was yours, Claire. She had no right. I sat frozen, my pulse pounding in my ears. They didn't just exclude me from Thanksgiving. They stole from me. My own family, my flesh and blood, had siphoned money meant to help me build a future. And they never told me. They never even hesitated. I'm sorry, Margaret said, her voice gentler now. I wasn't supposed to say anything. But after how they treated you, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. Thank you, I whispered. We talked for 10 more minutes. She promised to send me a copy of the lawyer's letter. I thanked her again, then ended the call and just sat there in silence. $35,000. Gone. And I had been scraping by for years, turning down weekend trips, clipping coupons, working side gigs on top of my full-time job. All while they sat on my money. Used it. Reallocated it. Lied about it. I opened the spreadsheet I'd started days ago, every loan, every financial favor. Then I opened a new document and titled it What They Took Without Asking. I filled in every detail I could recall: money, time, emotional labor. Things I'd given freely, thinking they were seen, appreciated, reciprocated. By the time I was done, my fingers were stiff from typing. But my mind? Clearer than it had been in years. I didn't confront them right away. I waited. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to be prepared. I gathered everything: screenshots of texts, bank transfers, copies of receipts, the excerpt of the will Margaret mailed me. I knew exactly how they'd respond. Denial. Tears. Gaslighting. A family chorus of "that's not what happened." But not this time. This time, I'd control the narrative. I invited them over under the guise of wanting to talk. Jenna arrived first, perfectly dressed and wearing the smug look of someone who thought she was about to win an argument. My parents followed 10 minutes later. My mother smiled tentatively. My father looked mildly annoyed, as though I dragged him away from something important. We sat in my living room. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't ask about their day. I simply placed a folder on the coffee table and looked each of them in the eye. "What's this?" my mother asked, her smile already faltering. "Proof," I said. My voice was calm. Not cold. Not angry. Just steady. "I know about the inheritance," I began. "The savings account Grandma opened for me. The one you emptied." My mother paled. My father shifted in his seat. "Claire, it wasn't like that." "You told the lawyer not to contact me," I said, cutting her off. "You knew it was meant for me. You had the letter. You made a choice." "We didn't keep it," Jenna chimed in, arms crossed. "We used it for the family." I turned to her slowly. "You mean you used it? For your kids? For your bills? For your lifestyle?" "We did what we thought was best," my mother said, sliding back into that soft maternal tone she used whenever she needed control. "You were doing fine. Jenna had more needs." "No," I said. "Jenna had more demands. And you enabled her." I pulled out the spreadsheet. "This is everything I've paid on your behalf over the last 6 years. Every loan. Every emergency. Every time you said you'd pay me back but didn't." "You didn't have to do all that," my father muttered. "But I did," I replied. "Because I believed I was helping my family. I believed you saw me. Valued me." They were quiet. "So here's what's going to happen," I said, voice unwavering. "I'm cutting off all financial support, effective immediately. No more transfers. No more coverage. And regarding the money Grandma left me, I'm giving you 2 options." I held up 2 fingers. "1, you sign a repayment agreement and return the funds in monthly installments. We go through a mediator." My father's jaw tensed. "Or 2, I go to the authorities and report the account as financial fraud. I've spoken to a lawyer. It's a viable case." My mother gasped. "You'd report your own parents? You stole from your own daughter," I said. That silenced them. "I don't want revenge," I added. "I want accountability. I want distance. I want peace." There was a long, loaded pause. Then my mother whispered, "You're serious about this?" I nodded. "I've never been more serious." Jenna scoffed. "You're so self-righteous. All this over one holiday dinner?" "No," I said. "All this because I finally realized I was never part of this family in the way I pretended to be. And I'm done pretending." They didn't sign anything that day. Of course they didn't. But they left. And this time, I didn't cry when the door shut behind them. The next week, I sent everything to the mediator. I blocked their numbers. I started therapy again. I got an unexpected call from HR about an internal promotion abroad, a role I'd never considered before but now felt like an open door to a life I no longer had to apologize for wanting. A month later, a check arrived in the mail. No note. No apology. Just $500. At the bottom. Payment 1 of 70. They'd chosen the repayment plan. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. The peace didn't come like a movie climax. There was no grand declaration, no slow-motion shot of me walking triumphantly down the street. It came quietly. The way finally exhaling feels after holding your breath for too long. After months of carrying grief, anger, and a truth I couldn't unsee, I had begun to feel something I hadn't in years: space. Not just in my schedule or my bank account, but in my mind. In my heart. I didn't need to answer every call. I didn't need to smooth over every silence. I didn't need to beg to belong. Because for the first time, I'd chosen myself. 3 weeks after I sent the repayment notice and blocked my family's numbers, I received a text from my father. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an acknowledgement. It was a group message, sent to me and Jenna. "This family is falling apart. Hope you're happy, Claire." I stared at the screen, then locked my phone and set it aside. Not out of spite. But because I finally understood something. They weren't falling apart because I stood up. They were falling apart because I stopped holding everything together. I had been their glue, silent, unpaid, emotionally drained glue. And when I stopped being convenient, they called it betrayal. But it wasn't betrayal. It was a boundary. That winter, I took my first solo trip in years. Just me, a small cabin in Colorado, and a stack of unread books. I went hiking. I cooked only for myself. I woke up when I wanted, journaled every day, and cried once, just once, when I realized I hadn't thought about Jenna or my parents for 3 whole days. When I got home, I bought a small painting for my living room, a bright abstract in warm reds and golds. It didn't match the decor. But it made me feel something, alive. I framed a new photo for my hallway. Not a family photo. It was a picture of me and 3 friends from work, people who had checked in after Thanksgiving, brought me soup when I had the flu, invited me over on a Friday night just because. People who showed up without being asked. People who gave without keeping score. That was family too. Maybe even more so. Spring came, and with it, the promotion I hadn't expected. A job abroad, new city, new role, new version of myself I was still discovering. I accepted it without overthinking, packed my things, and moved across the Atlantic to a quiet flat with large windows and creaky floors. I left the old dining table behind, the one I'd hosted Thanksgiving on 3 years ago when Mom threw out her back and Jenna was too tired. I remembered how I'd made personalized name cards for everyone, baked the pies from scratch, cleaned until 2 a.m. because I wanted it to be perfect. No one even said thank you. Now, I bought a smaller table. One that fit 2 or 3. Enough for people who came because they wanted to, not out of obligation, not out of blood, but out of love. One evening, as I was unpacking the last box, I came across the envelope I'd labeled what they took without asking. It held the spreadsheet, the notes, copies of the emails. For a moment, I felt the old fire return. But it didn't consume me anymore. Instead, I tucked it away in a drawer. Not out of shame. but as a reminder of what I survived and what I rebuilt. That Thanksgiving, I didn't check my phone. I didn't wait for a text that never came. I hosted dinner for 5, 2 friends from work, my neighbor from down the hall, and a couple I met through the community garden. We cooked together, laughed until midnight, shared stories from our childhoods. No one asked why I wasn't with my real family. And I didn't feel like explaining. Because this was real. Some time later, I received a certified envelope in the mail, another check from the repayment agreement. No note. Just the money and a ledger line, payment 5 of 70. It no longer made me angry. It just made me sure. Sure of who I'd become. Sure of the version of myself who no longer kept score for people who never kept count. Sure that love, true love, is a choice we make again and again. And sometimes, that choice means walking away from the people who taught you to silence your voice for the sake of peace. A few months after I settled into my new city, I visited a quiet cemetery just outside town. I'd brought with me the letter from Grandma, the one she wrote in 2012, the one I hadn't been ready to understand until everything else had fallen apart. Never let people convince you that love and loyalty are the same thing. Some will love you only when it benefits them. Pay attention. Walk away when you need to. I stood there with her letter in hand and whispered, "I finally walked away, Grandma." And I felt it. Her presence. Her pride. Her love, pure, quiet, without condition. The kind I'd stopped waiting for from the wrong people.